There's a place that exists beyond the news headlines, and its true identity is often hidden behind the Instagram filters. Many say it's not a place for the faint-hearted. Oh, isn't it a dangerous place? I think you're going to be killed there. But if you come with an open mind and a hunger for both history and culture, it's a journey worth taking. Guatemala, a country that feels like it's just as much about what's buried beneath the surface as it is about what's on the top. Even in the busiest streets, there are always excitements and surprises hidden in the plain sights. If you want to understand Guatemala, reading from the books and seeing it yourself will lead to two vast different experiences. You see, a bundle of paper binded together to the size of 6x9 has its limits. Guatemala is the land of the Maya, where ancient traditions and painful modern history collide. Only when you see it, feel it, and experience it can the years, the centuries, the scars, the eternity come all together in front of your eyes. It's easy to dismiss Guatemala as too dangerous or too complicated, but that's precisely why you should come. Sure, there was the reputation, but there's always more beyond what one picture can depict by these simple words. For Guatemala of the past to become Guatemala of today, it did not go down the easy path, and it wasn't always pretty. Guatemala may not be Disneyland, where you can enjoy a worry-free vacation in a man-made perfect world. Guatemala will be the place to remind you what it means to be alive. Guatemala, it's not just a place, it's a journey of learning, appreciations, and a travel of a lifetime. However, it is a truth universally acknowledged that when one often travels, things do not always go as planned. Sometimes, shit happens, and shit can happen really, really fast. Alright folks, yeah, this trip did not go as expected because by now I should have been on my way towards my final destination, but I am still at the Vancouver International Airport. Yeah, because of some delay. I'm just gonna sit down for now. Yeah, so in Canada we have regulations that essentially explains exactly what the rights of the passengers are in case delays like this happen. So in my case, if it's over 9 hours, not only am I entitled to a compensation, because up to now I still have no idea what's the reason of the delay, and also be entitled to a few other rights such as meal vouchers, hotels, transport to and from the airport. However, the AeroMexico agent just blatantly denied my claim on those kind of things, despite that it is clearly written on the air passenger protection regulations website of Canada. At each counter there are also signs that explains those kind of stuff, but those things were blatantly refused. And what happened was, so it was a red-eye flight, but fortunately I live in the Vancouver area, so I went back home and slept probably 2-3 hours and then came back again, all at my own cost. But the biggest problem is, because of this 24-hour delay, I'm gonna lose out on hotel night. And yes, I phoned the AeroMexico headquarters and they told me that they're not even able to help me with my hotel accommodation, like during this prolonged transit in Mexico City. And then they just asked me to pay everything out of my own pocket and maybe start a claim later. This, I'm not so sure how that's gonna go, but what I'll do is, I'll make it to the final destination first, and then I just had a hotel booked at the Mexico City Airport. It's just unfortunately I'll have to lose out on one night of my hotel stay in my final destination, and it's such a pity because that's actually a 5-star hotel, and I'm kind of losing out on this. But anyways, we'll see how that goes, and hopefully the trip will be smooth. But one thing for sure is I did not like how AeroMexico blatantly denied those accommodations despite what the air passenger protection regulation states. And they also say that if the delay is over 9 hours, regardless of the reason, whether it's because of your fault or out of your control, you will have to find passengers an alternative flight, doesn't matter with who, with the competing airline, with whoever, to make sure that they arrive at their final destination within the prescribed time frame. But the thing is, not only within 9 hours I'm not going to reach my final destination, it's going to be a full 24-hour delay, and I will have to pay everything for this delay out of pocket first. But anyways, I will keep you updated when I finish this trip on how the claim goes. Yeah, folks, we're gonna hold AeroMexico accountable for this. I've encountered situations before with Air Canada, with other flight companies, not an issue. But this one, they are just, it's the first time ever, I was told in the face that we're not gonna help you. That's literally like what they say. Yeah, you can file a complaint, go on website, file a form, but there is nothing we can provide you. Cannot provide transportation to your home and back to the airport. Cannot even provide you a meal voucher for the airport unless you go all the way in the security area for a flight that's delayed like 9 hours and a half. That's actually the only thing they offered. And of course, no hotel stay. Not in Vancouver, not even in Mexico City. Yeah, like it wasn't just me though. There was literally a woman broke down, and she was crying because she's gonna miss a wedding. And of course there were also children and family just at the airport close to midnight. But again, they've been telling us the same thing. They couldn't do anything, and if anybody could do anything, well, they will have to give AeroMexico a call, which doesn't really go that far either. But anyways, like I said, we'll hold them accountable. But for now, I'm gonna be at my boarding gate and see if I was to be able to make it to the plane, or is there a further delay? Who knows? Later, I found out the reason why the flight was delayed. Apparently, the pilot called in sick less than 3 hours before the flight departure. Well, at least according to AeroMexico. That's why our flight was cancelled at first, last minute, when most of the passengers were already at the airport. 10 hours later, they were able to find another pilot to fly our plane from Vancouver to Mexico City. Because there were no more flights available to Guatemala City on that day, I had to stay in Mexico City overnight and catch the very first flight the next morning. After arriving at Mexico City International Airport, I went to AeroMexico's counter and tried to request a meal voucher. And it worked! Now, at least my dinner was paid for. I then checked into a capsule hotel inside the airport and spent the night there. I did a separate review video on my side channel, Sayu's Guide. I will drop the link in the description box, so make sure to check it out if you're interested. The next day, first thing in the morning, I caught the first available flight to Guatemala City. When I arrived, it would be a 24-hour delay. I lost an entire day of exploring. I was supposed to be in Guatemala City for 2 full days, and now I've only got 1. As of the time when this video is published, I'm still waiting for a decision from Transport Canada on claiming back my out-of-pocket expenses from AeroMexico due to this delay. Maybe the real reason behind airlines like AeroMexico blatantly denying passengers what they're entitled to is because regulatory agencies like Transport Canada do not have effective enforcement for passenger rights violations. And the airlines know about this. That's why some of them take advantages of this situation. Anyways, once the dispute is resolved, I will post a video on Sayu Sky channel on this experience. But for now, let's kick off our Guatemala adventure. After a full 24-hour delay, I finally reached Guatemala City International Airport. My hotel in Guatemala City included a free transfer from and to the airport. And by the time I walked out of the arrival area, the shuttle was already there waiting for me. I booked a 5-star hotel in Zona 9, Zone 9 of the city at a very affordable rate. I've made a separate review video on my side channel, Sayu's Guide. I'll post the link again in the description box if you're interested in seeing how it is and how much I paid. I was able to check in right away because, oh well, they kept a room that I had already paid for 2 nights for me upon learning about the atrocious delay. It was a shame that I only got to enjoy the facilities of this hotel for 1 night only. Now let's talk about Guatemala City. Most visitors to Guatemala will only pass by the Guatemala City International Airport, but never visit the most populous city in Central America. Based on what I heard from others, there are 2 reasons. First, there isn't really anything that interests your average tourist in Guatemala City. Second, Guatemala City has a high crime rate. Only a decade ago, it was one of the most violent cities on this entire planet. Even to this day, the violent crime rate of Guatemala City remains relatively high. High enough to deter some visitors to Guatemala the country from going to Guatemala the city. The Canadian government advised travelers to avoid non-essential travel in certain zones of Guatemala City, and the United States State Department labeled Guatemala as a Level 3 reconsider travel destination. However, knowing that sometimes the places where the US State Department gives Level 3 warnings, in fact, are less intense than some neighborhoods in some cities in the United States itself, I thought it would be worth a while to give Guatemala City a shot. Yes, the government warnings are not there for no reason. That means certain precautions must be taken. Leave the big camera in the hotel room, only carry a small amount of cash, and try to get back to the hotel before dark. If you have been following our adventures, yep, much like how I did to my day trip to Ciudad del Este in Paraguay. Zone 9, where the hotel is located, and the nearby Zone 10 are considered safe areas of Guatemala City. I quickly went to Zone 10, got a Guatemalan SIM card, and withdrew some quetzales, the currency of Guatemala. After putting most of the cash back to my hotel room and a quick lunch at the club lounge of my hotel, let's kick off our Guatemala City adventure. I was planning to test out Guatemala City's Transmetro bus system. However, due to the 24-hour flight delay, I only had less than a full day to explore the city by that point. I decided to use Uber to get around. Despite that, I picked my hotel to be close to the Transmetro bus line. A longer than usual Uber ride took me from Zone 9 to Zone 1, the historic city center of Guatemala City. The reason why I said longer than usual was because the traffic conditions in Guatemala City was a complete nightmare. Something I wasn't aware of. Anyways, now we're here, let's get going. The square we're looking at is Plaza de la Constitución, the Constitution Square. This is the heart of Guatemala as a nation today. To the north, there is the National Palace, the government house where state ceremonies are held. And to the east, there is the Metropolitan Cathedral. I was trying to visit both the impressive buildings. However, there was a huge police presence around the National Palace. And when I went to the visitor entrance and asked the police there about visiting the building, I was told that the building was closed for all public visits indefinitely. I then crossed the street to the Metropolitan Cathedral, only found out that the gate was shut tight. What was going on? It appears that there's some sort of event today, and both the National Palace and even the Metropolitan Cathedral is closed. So, I don't know, did I really miss a day? I'm not sure. Yeah, because even if I have a full day, the chances are those places are closed. I'm not sure if it's because of the, some sort of event, or it's more like a protest crowd. It's absolutely chaotic here in Central Historical, and I like it. Maybe it was GOD's plan all along. I suddenly felt better about my flight delay. Even if I got in a day early, what if everything was closed, just like today? Since there wasn't really anything to do, or really anything I could do, I might as well just hang out around Plaza de la Constitución with a crowd there. It definitely felt like a protest crowd in front of the National Palace. Little did I know, what I saw was just an opening act and an introduction to Guatemala's turbulent modern history. People versus the government. There was a lot of dark shit going on. Some of the things definitely made me sick to the stomach. And you will be surprised who the big bosses were pulling all the strings behind all that. We will gradually unfold the story as our Guatemala adventure goes on, so stay tuned. I noticed on the map that there was a public market right behind the Metropolitan Cathedral. Why don't we go there and take a look? This is El Mercado Central, the central market of Guatemala City. I thought this market was kind of shady while I was there, but now I can tell you that it is the best organized public market of its kind I had been during our Guatemala adventure. What I want to say is, the other ones are, let's put it this way, more down to earth, more interesting, and more energetic. Trust me, you'll see them all later. Afterwards, I headed to Paseo de la Siesta, 6th Avenue. It is the main shopping street of Guatemala City. This street is the most chaotic and intense place I've visited in Guatemala, period. There were scenes and people that I did not feel comfortable showing you on camera. Here are some examples. I saw a gentleman's backpack unzipped by pickpockets, some men peeing openly on the streets, and quite a number of other men just lying on the ground, totally unconscious, not sure what was going on. as I had seen how bad the traffic in Guatemala City on my way to Zone 1, and I didn't feel like ordering an Uber in this kind of setting was a good idea. I decided to walk as much as possible towards the south, where Zone 9 and Zone 10 are located, and then order an Uber in a less intense place. I had also seen a few amazing architectures on my way up from Zone 9, so I figured it also gave me an opportunity to see if I could pass by these buildings again for a closer look. Right next to the National Civil Police Headquarters, there was a historic church, Iglesia San Francisco. And the good news was, it was open. The construction of this church began in the early 1800s, before Guatemala and the rest of Central America, then collectively known as the Captaincy General of Guatemala, declared independence from Spain in 1821. The construction of the church was completed in 1852, a few years after the current constitution was adopted, which the modern nation of Guatemala was founded upon. This building had already gone through 2 major reconstructions, as they were severely damaged by 2 big earthquakes in the 20th century. Interestingly, the origin story of Guatemala City also has something to do with earthquakes. Prior to 1776, the physical location of the city known as Guatemala was actually not where it is now. A devastating earthquake in 1773 practically destroyed the then capital city of the Captaincy General of Guatemala, turning buildings into ruins. In 1776, the then Spanish colonial court decided to abandon the old capital city and established a brand new capital city 25 kilometers in the east, the New Guatemala, which is the city we're in today and can be reflected in the city's official name, Nueva Guatemala de la Asunción. Later in our Guatemala adventure, we will see both a byproduct of Guatemala's geographical location, one that often happens with earthquakes, as well as the Guatemala City prior to 1776, today known as Antigua, Guatemala. Iglesia de San Francisco was like a peaceful refuge in Guatemala City's urban chaos. But I had to move on. Before I could even find a suitable place to call an Uber, I already left Zona 1 and entered Zona 4, Zone 4. This zone is home to some government institutions like the Supreme Court and Guatemala's Central Bank. There are also some museums in this zone, but they were all closed for the day by the time I reached there. Zone 4 is also home to a lot of public arts and cafes. It's definitely the trendy and hipster neighborhood of the city. While seeing this kind of stuff in Guatemala wasn't really my priority. To me, this actually means one thing. It'll be a good place to order an Uber without worrying about getting stuck in the crazy Guatemala City traffic I saw in Zone 1. It was close to dinner time, so instead of going back to my hotel, I figured maybe I could go to a mall and see what kind of food they have. So I set my destination to Oakland Place Mall in Zone 10, which is within walking distance of my hotel. When I arrived, I was in for a total shock. I have to say, I am really impressed by this mall. Wow! I don't think I've even seen something like this in Canada. The Oakland Place Mall had all sorts of brands that you would expect to see in premium shopping centers in Canada and the United States. They even had a park where kids can play and people can walk their dogs, fully secured by guards paid by the mall. It felt like a completely separate world from the chaos of Zone 1 I saw earlier that day. In this bubble, you don't have to worry about safety or the lack of restrooms. Everyone hanging out there appears to either have money or have more money than you, or in this case, me. This is what high life looks like in Guatemala. Yeah, so for y'all gringos who are racist towards folks from third world countries. For example, you can say Guatemala. Chances are they've been to better shopping malls than you have. Oh yeah, the main reason why I came to Oakland Place Mall was trying to see what kind of dinner options they have. Oh well, not that much different from premium shopping centers back home. No thanks, not Panda Express. I guess I will pass this time and get back to my hotel. Hey, I already paid $15 for a day pass at the hotel's premium club lounge. I think some finger foods and beer should be good enough. Alright guys, I'm back from my quick exploration of Guatemala City. I walked back to my hotel after sunset. It was okay, but it was not as fun as during the day. Yeah, like I can tell you folks, like even in Zone 10, there's nothing to do at night unless you're just going out for dinner. It was really funny that most of the sites I've tried to visit it, or at least on my bucket list, they were all closed for some reason, but there are other places I never got to visit, such as Cayala, which is a Guatemalan reimagination of a European city built in the past 20 years or so. Despite that, I couldn't visit all the sites I wanted to see in Guatemala City. Let me try to answer two fundamental questions that might be factors driving visitors away from the largest city in Central America based on my experience. First one up, is Guatemala City too dangerous for visitors? Statistically, it still kind of is. But I think as long as you are not in the wrong place at the wrong time, knowing where to go and not to go, and practice common sense, like not showing off your Rolex or diamond rings while walking down the streets, you should be okay most of the time. So my tip for you folks, just walk and be confident that you have absolutely nothing on you. Yeah, like if you ask me where my money is, I don't even know because I don't have any. Why gringos get robbed is because, well, they think they're gringos. They think they have more wealth or anything than most of the people, but really just have this mentality that you're probably nobody. I think that definitely helps. Like to me, I feel like I'm nobody, and to be honest, like some of the clothing I'm wearing, if I walk on the street, like seriously, I feel ashamed because there are many wealthy people here in this city, and like who's gonna really stare at a guy wearing a free Jollibee t-shirt? Yeah, by the way, that's me. Second question, is Guatemala City really skippable like what everybody else says? This is what I want to say. A visit to Guatemala without seeing Guatemala City would be incomplete, as there is no other better place in the whole country to see today's Guatemalan society in a nutshell. Think about Guatemala City like a coin with two sides. On one side, the city is intense and chaotic, like how you have always imagined a Latin American metropolis should be like from Hollywood movies, which might not be an accurate depiction for 90% of other Latin American cities that I've been to. But somehow, that image fits perfectly for Guatemala City. On the flip side, this city is home to world-class shopping malls, hotels, and dining venues that can easily make you forget where you are, and maybe even forget the other side of the same city. Guatemala City felt like it's torn apart, much like Guatemala, the nation's turbulent modern history. A full tour of Guatemala City, unfortunately this time I'm not able to provide it. I don't think that's something that I'll be able to do because some of the things that, again, not appropriate for filming, and that's why it's so important that you visit this place and experience it. Not watching it on TV, not watching it on YouTube, not reading on books, but come here, experience it. And I can tell you this experience is really eye-opening. It's really fascinating, really intrigued. I'm so glad I'm able to do it. Tomorrow I'm heading to another great signature experience of Guatemala. And again, I cannot wait to be there and experience it, and most importantly to show you in the best way possible, because I will have more time than probably most other people because I actually paid 2 days of tickets. So I'm gonna go into that national treasure of Guatemala for 2 days, and I'll be presenting all that content just for you. For now, I guess it's time we call it a day, and I'll see you in the next chapter of our Guatemala adventure.